Hello, everyone. My name is Shkya Ghanbarian. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Business Development at Eddy Solutions. It's my pleasure today to be presenting alongside Roopesh Patel of Rogers. First off, this is our last presentation of the day, and it's been an incredible day. So thank you all for being here, visiting ourselves, our sponsors, asking questions, and generally just being curious about IoT, prop tech, and insurtech. So at this time, I'll actually turn it over to my co-facilitator, Roopesh Patel, to introduce himself.
Thanks, Shkya. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Roopesh Patel, the Director for Smart Buildings and Construction at Rogers for Business. Excited to hear all the topics at today's IoT Summit. And yeah, even more excited to share with yourselves from intelligent infrastructure to an intelligent world. So I guess
Great.
with that, Shkya will kick off the presentation.
Thanks, Roopesh. So just a quick note about how our session will go. Roopesh and I have a presentation which we'll go through. We'll have some time at the end to address any questions you have, so please use the QA function. And we encourage you to write the questions as soon as you have it, and we'll do our very best to address them. All right, Roopesh, over to you.
Thanks, Shkya. So, today we've spoken about IoT. We've had, great conversations around IoT, the value the smart technology has brought to our customers, our organizations, and how the pandemic itself has led to the catalyst of IoT, adoption. But before we jump into, intelligent infrastructure, smart buildings, smart cities, I thought it would be good to, take a trip back to understand where did IoT start from? Where did, how has this concept evolved over the years? And also take stock of where we are today to, just have a look at how far we've come in this industry. Now, when you think of IoT, there's many thoughts that come to mind. Every individual has a different view, different opinion, what it means to them. And IoT is just that. It is a lot of things that are connected, and there isn't a single view on what it means overall. It's about connectivity, yes, but it can mean many things to many people. And this concept started off, in the 1990s, 1980s, when, with a modified Coke machine that became the first internet-connected appliance, all because a group of thirsty, frustrated, and innovative computer science students in Pittsburgh wanted to know the inventory level of the Coke machine nearby. Later on, this concept, of IoT became popular in the 2000s. LG announcing its first ever internet-enabled refrigerator. Then you had the launch of the ambient orb in 2002. And personally, that for me, was like the basic simplified version of an Echo or a Google Nest Hub that just gave you the Dow Jones information. But as we can see, when we look at IoT today, it has truly evolved from its early days. And when we combine IoT with the future and the power of 5G and the advancing technologies that we see come out day in and day out in the industry, the smart buildings, smart cities, industrial 4.0 space truly stands out as the areas where we would see an explosion of technology, innovation, and value adding for all stakeholders within the segment. But let's look at IoT from a numbers perspective. What does it mean today in terms of where we stand with IoT today and the growth in the near future? Well, this concept has obviously grown over the years, over the last few decades. We've seen this move from, in 2017, $100 billion business to one that is now projected to be a $1.1 to $1.6 trillion business by 2025. As of 2021, 10 billion active devices in the market. In the next 4 years, we'll be connecting around 152,000 IoT devices per minute. I think by the time I'm done with this slide, we would have, done around 300,000 devices around the world. And what's really fascinating for me is that 83% of organizations that have adopted IoT in some form of manner have seen improved efficiencies in their operations. And by 2023, in the next 2 years, we're expecting 3.5 billion cellular IoT connections globally. I can keep on, Shkya, I can keep on listing remarkable IoT stats for days. And, hoping this small set gives you an idea of the impression and impact this technology is having in our industry. But also what we've seen in the future, and, decades old ideas emerge, such as AI. We've seen, the increase in private networks brought around by 5G, the talk about digital twins, the value they have in it as well. This has truly, disrupted in a positive way the industry once again, kickstarted that digital revolution. And what seemed like fantasy years ago, I personally am looking forward to, seeing how this space grows further, the innovation it brings along, and the value it adds to everyone's lives. Now, personally to me, when we look at in our industry, in the PropTech industry, two key areas that we'd like to see IoT continue to provide in value is around the smart buildings and smart city space. So when you think about any city, and let's any city at all around the world, it is always represented, through a silhouette of its most predominant and famous buildings. It's virtually impossible to imagine a city without conjuring an image of the buildings that populate it. New York is known for Times Square, the amount of buildings, with the digital signs and the TV screens, etc. You've got Canada in Toronto, the CN Tower, etc. London, you've got the Shard. All of these cities are known by the buildings and the most famous buildings. So, when you think about a smart city, the foundation of any smart city is around its smart buildings. And we need to understand and acknowledge that, smart buildings play a key role in helping smart cities achieve their goals. They form that building blocks of a scalable foundation. Now, if we had to think about smart buildings infrastructure, you can think about it as a microcosm of a smart city infrastructure, in the sense that they both address the same issues. In the way smart cities care about the energy consumption, water, waste, lighting, so does our smart building solutions focus on those areas. How do I alleviate congestion in my building? How do I allow, enable people to navigate the way around using wayfinding services? How do I ensure as well that I have good connectivity, all the devices in my building are well connected and able to pass that data through? So while we got a building as a standalone smart infrastructure, we have smart cities that have smart infrastructure as well, from utilities to smart traffic. What would be ideal, or what forms the basis of a good smart city foundation, is the seamless interaction between these various infrastructures. So think about an electricity grid, for example, a smart grid. In a typical smart city, you'd have a smart grid that manages the distribution through the constant monitoring of supply and demand data. Now, if this grid were connected to smart buildings, it'd be able to understand the occupants' energy needs, respond to weather conditions, and as buildings automatically adjust themselves to maximize efficiencies, so can the grid also accommodate either a surge or drop in energy needs and ensure that stability all around. However, as smart buildings continue to grow and adoption increase within our cities, so does the amount of data that needs to be analyzed. A key factor in any building is its connectivity. How do you ensure your IoT connectivity network can handle the amount of data required and process this as quickly as possible? One of the things we've seen starting to trend and become more and more important to organizations is around the combination of workload consolidation and edge computing. We've seen organizations look towards how do they bring all these various technologies, data points into a unified platform that they can, sift through the data using AI, machine learning, and drive further insights. But at the same time, as the data sets grow and increase, how do they use edge computing to keep the data close to its origin, that will allow for faster analytics, quicker feedback and decision making? And if we think about like predictive analytics, for example, this is one space that is starting to trend and will see the need for that consolidated data and quick feedback and insights. But I spoke about data, I spoke about insights. Another key factor around smart buildings, and why it's good foundation for any smart city is around the financial benefits of it as well. Smart buildings not only save money, we all aware it's around operational efficiencies, helping reduce costs, driving efficiencies across any part of the building. But what's really valuable about smart city is that it increases the asset value when compared to a non-connected building. And purely because, this runs much more efficiently, better, and at a lower cost. But the benefits of smart technology go beyond this. With a millennial workforce that is demanding, work environments, buildings that have smart technology in it, smart buildings have the ability to attract tenants, reducing, the vacancy rates, but also at the same time, from a developer perspective, they're able to charge a premium when selling their construction developments because they've embedded smart technology that will make a resident's or an employee's life easier and more productive.
And Rupesh, what about sustainability? So we hear a lot about this, but what role does smart infrastructure have to play when it comes to sustainability?
Well, actually, Shkya, that's a good point. Now, if you think about, smart infrastructure and sustainability, let's start off with, our global population. Today, we had about 7.8 billion people. This is expected to expand to 9.7 billion by 2050. And with the great urbanization, it's expected that 80% of people will live in cities. So think about that. 80% of people will need to be accommodated in single family homes, high rises, low rises, multi MDUs. So all of this is going to put a strain on, cities in terms of providing clean water, food, energy, and efficient transport systems. But this urbanization will also, result in us burning more fossil fuels because there'll be an increased need of transportation, accommodating all these people in the buildings, the facilities, their demands will also have an increase in the amount of energy that is being used. So when we think about smart infrastructure and sustainability, the best place to start off with is around smart cities. If we don't, or without smart cities, if we don't address the sustainability component, we won't be able to tackle the large carbon footprint that cities have. And this war against global warming will actually be won or lost at the city level. Now, let's bring this locally, Shkya. I spoke about global population, and that's all good and well. But if we look at the Canadian population, 81% of Canadians live in cities. So while globally this urbanization rate is in the future, Canada is already there. We have a high urbanization rate. So our issues are here today. Our need for action is here today. And whilst we are one of the top countries in generating green electricity, where we 2/3 of our electricity is generated through hydroelectricity, we're also a country with a lot of buildings, and these buildings demand high energy. If I take it into numbers for you, our buildings in Canada utilize around produce around 17% of our greenhouse gases. 1/5 come from all the buildings, and 40% of emissions from electricity generation is for energy used in our buildings. So this makes sense why government and cities are looking towards incentives and helping, residential customers, incentivizing them to take on more sustainable, cost-saving initiatives around their energy, where they've got funds for corporate companies to retrofit their energy, incentivize them for reducing their energy consumption. Once that I came across, said that smart technology can help reduce energy costs in a building by between 25 and 50%. That's amazing. Like, you're reducing costs, but you're also reducing consumption and you're becoming sustainable. That's like a win-win-win. And it doesn't stop there, right? You've also got sustainability around water usage. Eddy is a good example of that, where, when we launched Eddy Solutions at Rogers, I always got asked, initially, like, why did we choose Eddy as one of our early IoT products to launch? Apart from it obviously being an amazing and cost-effective solution, it aligned well with our sustainability goals. It's around, saving on water consumption, monitoring this, reducing wastage. And as a corporate organization, and where we're a key role player in IoT, that's one of our goals, is that products we take to market, we need to have a sustainability component around this. And it's not just to do with water and energy. Think about wastage as well. I'll give you an example. At Rogers, we use AI and sensors to help monitor the fill levels in our bins. So we also use this technology to help, visitors to the office, employees, correctly sort their waste so that we tackle the problem at the source. But that's not all that we're doing around waste management. We take this data, we share it with our third-party providers, and we've changed their model where, rather than coming in to pick up these massive waste bins, based on the schedule, and they only 30 or 40% full, we can now use the AI technology and help them predict their schedule and collect the bins when they really full. In this way, we're limiting the number of trips taken to the office, we limiting or reducing the carbon footprint, and indirectly driving sustainability as well. And if we take this back to a city level, in Europe, we've seen developers, for example, on city transportation and infrastructure projects, actively recycling construction and demolition waste to keep the materials in use as long as possible. So, sustainability, infrastructure, the work we do, the operations, they all tied in. And if we don't have sustainability as a core to any smart building or smart city strategy, yes, we will reap the benefits, but then you won't be surrounded by an environment in which it will be very beneficial for future generations. Now, Shkya, sustainability is one concept of IoT. Data insights, efficiencies, reductions are another. But I also know that IoT can help with reducing risk, and putting smart technology in building cities can help with risk. So can you tell us a bit more about IoT and risk reduction?
Yes, I certainly can. So, Roopesh spoke earlier about the evolution of IoT devices, but really in this section, I want to focus on how these technology and devices have helped shape the reduction of risks over time. So, most property owners today, we've equipped our homes or buildings with the newest security gadgets, high-end alarm systems, and cameras to protect their asset against theft. For fire protection, we have smoke and carbon monoxide detectors that are mandated. Well, what are we doing to really protect ourselves and our assets against water? The harsh reality is you're 12 times more likely to experience a major water damage over fire and 3 times more likely than theft. So when it comes to water damage, the best IoT-enabled devices are water monitoring sensor systems and an automatic shutoff. Insurers are really focused on addressing this risk to make sure that they're reducing their chances of a claim and ultimately having a book of business. I think the insurance industry plays a really important role in influencing the governments and putting in different mandates and really supporting systems like leak detection in order to be able to address the number of claims. For example, at one point, fire was dominating insurance claims, and today the chances of fire at a property is significantly reduced due to the protocols and technologies that have been put into place from a preventative measure. So the next missing piece was really water. And throughout the years, I've attended a lot of insurance events. And one of the most common phrases you hear is that water is the new fire. So with the water damage claiming the number of insurance claims. And then most of us, again, we're using IoT devices in our everyday lives. So whether that's for convenience, savings, or simply to have control over our home, if you're at work for the day or on vacation for a week, these IoT technologies are providing you the ability to control the different issues that may arise. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the products you might see here. You have a smart thermostat, which provides the ability to control the temperature of your home from anywhere in the world. Some of them are smart enough to be programmed to take into consideration the weather outside and adjust accordingly, which translates to savings for homeowners. We also have Amazon Echo and Google Home, which are utilizing AI voice assistants to provide with quick actions using a few simple words. Maybe you want to hear your favorite song or schedule an Uber. AI just makes it easy to turn a thought into a reality. The Ring doorbell is another great example that provides the ability to know who's at your doorsteps with a few swipes on your phone, really revolutionizing the way we look at doorbells and their capabilities. The great news is that IoT has enabled innovative ways to address risks that simply wasn't possible before. And IoT water monitoring products have really used this platform to provide insights into the water environment of a home. From a building perspective, we are seeing the same shift into smart buildings. They're also leveraging similar technologies that we discussed for the home, but of course on a larger scale. These technologies that were once considered revolutionary are steadily becoming the norm in today's leading buildings. And some of this includes things like managed electricity reductions, maximized building security, smart sensors for lighting, water, occupancy, and more. And buildings are really focused on having a productive and cost-effective environment through optimization of structure, system, service, and management. So another really big motivator to adopt IoT and new technologies for homes, buildings, as well as cities is the safety element and the benefits of the risk mitigation that we spoke about. I already mentioned some of the technologies that are addressing risks like fire, theft, and water, but when it comes to all the stakeholders in commercial, multi-residential assets, everybody really from end user, residents, tenants to property managers, asset managers, and insurers are gaining value along the chain. And really the key underlining value propositions are about creating a smarter environment that will help you avoid losses, and the avoidance of things like tenant and resident displacements, as well as business interruptions, and obviously avoiding deficits due to both out-of-pocket and deductible expenses. The other great thing that you also mentioned was that data component. So having access to greater transparency around the data that these technologies are providing. For the insurance sector, these technologies are assisting with reduction of claims, and these savings are passed along to clients in forms of discounts, reduction in premiums, or even deductibles. So our use case for smart buildings, since Eddy is an expert in water protection, I want to focus our use case for smart buildings on looking at water specifically. So it's clear that water damage impacts all stakeholders. And again, as I mentioned, because we work with a lot of insurance companies, they're always saying water is the new fire because of the stats and the frequently of the claims. And water damage accounts for nearly 60% of all real estate claims by percentage and 71% of all real estate claims by dollar. And in addition, from a residential perspective, it accounts for about 50% of residential claims. So this represents the largest and most persistent risk to assets, operators, owners, insurers, and residents. And Eddy's objective is to address all the pain points for all the different stakeholders by providing water damage protection for all asset classes. We really have a comprehensive suite of products that are able to be configured in really any shape, form, or way to be able to protect buildings, starting from main zones to the suites, risers, and really everything in between, as you see here. We also provide protection throughout various phases of a project, course of construction to operating building, as well as retrofits. So now I want to kind of move on from looking at the smart building setting and really building that foundation for smart cities.
Awesome, Shkya. So, Shkya, if I had to ask you, when I say smart city, what is your first thoughts that come to mind around a smart city?
Well, fresh in my mind are smart buildings right now. Smart buildings, smart infrastructure, people, services are just some of the things that come to mind.
Exactly. And I was hoping you'd give us a list because, throughout my years when talking to anyone, stakeholders, be it them from technology, government, or even citizens, when I ask them what do they see as smart cities, you'd have the technology guys tell you, oh, it's about, smart parking, lighting. Officials go, hey, how do I, digitize my business, my city business in terms of allowing people to search for records online or applying for permits online. And then from a citizen perspective, it's interesting. The key things that come up is around, well, how do I get around more efficiently in my city, and how do we use the technology to help drive down crime? And when you take a step back, every single person's view on smart cities is right. If a smart city is built properly, it will provide different value to different stakeholders. People might not think of their city as a smart city. They only know it as a place where they want to live in, work in, and be a part of. But to build this type of a smart city, you first have to build the appropriate framework. Now, looking at frameworks, I came across this smart city Edmonton framework, and for me, this was what I felt, was a holistic framework where it talks about, collaborating with private organizations, residents, technology partners, around the helping to optimize and use data and technology. We in a framework, in a smart city framework, you also need to incorporate the development of policies. You'd have policies that need to accommodate, for these new innovative changes coming along the way. Also, at the same time, how do we introduce new and innovative services or different funding models that will help drive benefit across the value chain? Now, before you jump into what is my vision for a smart city, what you need to do is you need to take stock of where you are today. Because by understanding your current data, what's happening in your city today, can only then you understand the steps you need to take to, deliver on this vision and get all your partners and citizens along with you. Now, when everyone talks about smart cities, they see this as, oh, government needs to be the leader or adopter. And to an extent, yes, but government alone cannot, deliver on a smart city alone. So like you look at this framework, they first step is developing their partnerships, understanding, who can contribute what, how can they work together, what do citizens and citizen organizations want, from a smart city? What do they expect? But with any technology out there, whether it's old and new, there's always a concern around the privacy and security needs. And this should always form the foundation. Privacy and security, needs to accommodate for when it comes to the use and collection of data. How do we collect the data? How do we store it? How do we manage this? How is it used? And more especially, and very importantly, by who? You don't want cities selling unnecessary data to third-party organizations who are just going to then push products to you. The goal should be that, we should use this data for the overall benefit and increase the quality of life of citizens within that city. I think, we're all aware of sidewalk labs and the great stuff they wanted to do. But unfortunately, because of the big privacy concerns, it was a project that did not take off. So once we have this data, can then we start analyzing and understanding what's truly happening in near real time, and then take the corrective action, depending on whatever collectively government wants to achieve, either this be from driving efficiency, improving public health and wellness, optimizing traffic management, or increasing public security, but in a non-intrusive, private manner. All of this combined ultimately, helps us drive to that one vision as a true smart city. And when we look at what is a, when we look at all the components of a true smart city that work together, interact, and drive towards that common goal, one important factor is around the connectivity and how this will enable that connected goal. Now, one of the things that I'd like to end off this conversation is around, the importance of 5G. We've, all aware of 5G. As Rogers, we build in the largest 5G network, and we see the value in this for all customers, be it, from a consumer or enterprise perspective. Now, no matter what we do in a city, one thing's for sure is that, these cellular networks are crucial to realizing that vision. And when we look at 5G technology, the benefits and the features it has can positively impact the digital experiences and smart cities, from the high speeds, the low latencies that will allow us to connect a multitude of devices at the same time. Let's look at, think about it today, right? When pre-pandemic, if were in a crowded vacation spot or at a stadium, mobile connectivity wasn't the best. It would have been lagging, or because of the load onto the network. But with 5G, we're now able to improve this experience and have a huge number of connections simultaneously connecting in that space. So imagine, as we deploy more devices into our buildings, more devices into our cities, we're able to accommodate that on this network and drive that high speed that we need. Now, McKinsey and Co. have identified that 5G will have a huge impact on the industrial 4.0 segment. But there's also, let's look at some of the use cases in there. 5G will help around, automated guided vehicles, real-time process control of private networks. But there's also significant value to be added from a city energy connected office perspective. Cities will be able to use 5G to deploy HD cameras on a mass scale, advanced video surveillance, use AI technology for traffic management. And, we know the climate's not going to get any better. Yes, there is the action plan. Countries are driving towards that. But the external air environment, with the wildfires, quality is not getting better year on year. So this technology will also help cities deploy environmental sensors on a mass scale to give them those near real-time insights and, drive that citizen engagement, keep them informed, and drive a better public health and safety component. One thing for sure is that 5G will enable a hyper-connected future, no matter the use case. And at Rogers, what I'd like to always say is we the enablers. We all about enabling that ecosystem and finding the right partners to help solve that problem with our connectivity, with our customers. And 5G forms the core of that. So Shkya, I know we're over time, but with that, I'll end here. As I'm sure everyone's super excited for the upcoming award ceremony, and hand over to you to close out our segment.
All right, perfect, Roopesh. So we are running tight on time, but I think we can actually answer a quick question that we had here. So it looks like the question is for you, Roopesh, and it's from a Rogers customer. You mentioned you're on the IoT smart city side of Rogers, but what can you share about smart homes with Rogers?
Yeah, similar concept to the smart building, smart home side. Our smart home offerings, talk about helping customers from a security perspective. We have solutions that can help customers with their home security, from motion sensors, door sensors, window sensors, through to including or value-added alarm services where you can have a professional monitor your property 24/7. But we also take this into the automation space. So, we know as an individual, as myself, homeowner, it's important to understand, how energy is being used in your home. You want to remotely control your assets within your home. So we also have solutions that will give you, through smart plugs, LED light bulbs, smart light bulbs, etc., that can give you insights into how your smart technology, your energy consumption is being consumed in your home, and let you remotely monitor and manage those.
Perfect. Thank you, Rupesh. So this has been an absolute pleasure. I'd like to thank all of you for being with us today. And I'm sure, like me, everyone who's been listening has learned a lot. Now we're getting ready to announce the winners of our IoT Prop Tech Awards. So please join us in a few minutes. In the meanwhile, thank you, Rupesh, and thank you all of you for joining us again.
Thank you, Shakaya. It was a great session. Thank you.